Welcome to today's webinar, From Data to Wow, Shaping the Future of Quality with AI, sponsored by ETQ. I'm Dirk Ducharme, Editor-in-Chief for Quality Digest and your host for today's webinar. Quality organizations are under unprecedented pressure. Faster production cycles, increasingly complex products, and expanding regulatory expectations are forcing teams to move more quickly while managing more risk than ever before. Yet, many quality professionals still waste too much time chasing data, reconciling systems, and reacting to issues after they occur. A new era of quality is emerging, and artificial intelligence is the catalyst. When applied thoughtfully, AI shifts quality from static records and fragmented data into intelligence that anticipates risk, accelerates decision making, and amplifies human expertise. Today, we're going to look at how AI is reshaping the quality landscape and redefining what Quality 4.0 truly means, drawing on industry trends, real world patterns, and decades of quality domain experience. We'll explore how organizations can move from firefighting to foresight through responsible, compliant, and practical applications of AI. Before we get started, just a reminder that you can send us questions using the Q&A box. If you mouse down there towards the bottom of your screen, you should see the Q&A button in the bar down there. Just send your questions to us as you think of them, and we will address them after the presentation. A recording of this webinar will be available one day after the webinar, about this time tomorrow. You'll get an email with that information from Quality Digest. And again, important, those of you who need a certificate of attendance, you must answer one of the polling questions presented during the webinar. If you don't see that, just let me know via Q&A. Okay, let's get started. We have two presenters today. First is Angela Anderson, Product Marketing Manager at ETQ. Angela is an experienced marketing professional who has created and executed marketing programs for technology-driven and SaaS organizations in a range of industries. At ETQ, she is a critical senior member of the product marketing team with special expertise in connected worker issues and solutions. Also with us is Diptesh Shah, Executive Director of AI and Machine Learning Strategy at ETQ. Diptesh leads the strategy and vision for embedding AI, machine learning, and advanced analytics into the company's quality management platform and product portfolio to deliver intelligent capabilities that help manufacturing organizations worldwide improve quality and compliance outcomes. And Angela, I believe you are up first. Go ahead.
Thanks, Dirk. Thank you, everyone, for joining our session today. Before we dive in, I just wanted to kind of quickly walk through what you can expect from this session. Dirk gave us a nice little setup there. The format will be kind of a Q&A style conversation with Diptesh. So this is a chance to hear directly from a seasoned AI expert who's actively building solutions for modern quality management systems. So first, we're going to take a look at how AI is changing the quality landscape, not in abstract terms, but in very real ways that are helping teams shift, as Dirk mentioned, from that position of reacting to issues to actually anticipating those. Then we'll explore the AI use cases that are delivering value right now. There's a lot of noise in the market, so we'll focus on what's practical, proven, already making measurable impact in quality workflows. And then finally, we'll talk through some ways to get started. So every organization, I'm sure all of you are at different stages of adopting these new technologies, and we hope that you'll leave this session with maybe a clearer sense of how to adopt AI responsibly, transparently, and in a way that's going to align with where you are in your journey and taking you forward. So with that, I'm going to hand off to Diptesh to set the scene for us.
Alrighty. Thank you, Angela. And thanks to everyone for taking the time to join us today. So Dirk kind of gave a great lead in, but really the question is, why are we even talking about AI in the context of quality right now, right? So the short answer is, look, quality teams are under more pressure than ever. And quite frankly, the traditional ways of working just aren't keeping up, right? We know quality leaders and teams today are navigating some very real and serious headwinds, rising production costs, skilled labor shortages, increased regulatory pressure, shifting cost structures, right, due to geopolitical tension and otherwise. All of that makes it harder to maintain quality, ensure compliance, while still protecting margins and profitability, right? Everything still comes down to that. And also at the same time, there's been a huge explosion of data across the quality landscape, the supplier interactions, audit findings, complaints, CAPAs, training records, all sorts of things and other day-to-day activity that happens or that you're tracking inside your quality management system. Now, all of this information holds value, but the challenge is no longer about collecting data, right? It's about making sense of it and making sense of it quickly enough to actually act, right? Take action. So what I've consistently heard from quality leaders across various industries, didn't matter what size of operation they were running, is that too much time is being spent searching for information and trying to piece it together instead of actually being able to act on it. So the data is there, but it's spread across the QMS, across maybe other systems. It's disconnected and, quite frankly, hard to interpret and interpret in a timely manner. And that creates a real problem because quality organizations are being, again, asked to spot issues earlier, make faster decisions, maintain tighter compliance, and often with fewer resources. So by the time insights actually surface, teams are already reacting to something that's happened instead of being able to take proactive measures to prevent. And so this is where AI really starts to matter in a practical way, not as a shiny little new tool or as a buzzword, but actually as an enabler that helps teams cut through the noise, right? AI can surface, I mean, AI can do a lot of things, but AI can surface patterns across large volumes of your quality and QMS data, highlight things like emerging risks, guide users towards the next best action. So teams can move from reacting to issues to anticipating them, right? Now, understood, at the same time, there's a lot of uncertainty. Many organizations know AI has potential, but they don't know exactly where to start. They're concerned about trust, validation, explainability, how AI fits into regulated quality processes. And there's also often a gap between the promise of AI and what can actually be operationalized. And that's really what today's all about, right? Grounding this conversation in reality, talking about how AI is already being applied in quality management today, where it's delivering value right now, and how organizations can approach AI in a responsible, transparent way that aligns with their level of maturity and regulatory environment. And quite just to end, ultimately, the goal isn't to replace people or automate judgment or automate decision making. All right. It's really to give quality teams a strategic edge, right? Helping them to do more with less, be able to move faster, make better decisions, and operate with confidence in an environment that's really only getting more complex. So again, thank you all for joining and looking forward to diving into the details here.
Thanks, Divtesh. And certainly doesn't ever get more simple, does it? So yeah, let's. So you mentioned, kind of getting real about the AI conversation. So let's peel back some layers here. So
Mm,
we mentioned this phrase quality 4.0. So and we've been hearing quality 4.0 for a few years now,
yep.
and as you mentioned, so many teams still spend a lot of time reacting versus acting and kind of playing that catch up game. So in light of this new era that's emerging from your vantage point, what's fundamentally different about this moment as we shift from quality 3.0 to 4.0? What does that really look like in practice? And maybe talk a little bit about why AI is such a defining catalyst for this next era of quality. Help us
Yep.
unpack, Diptesh.
I will give my best shot here. Yeah, so as you just mentioned, look, we've been talking about quality 4.0 for several years now. And it really emerged alongside the broader, right, Industry 4.0 movement. And the original promise here was modernization, right? Digitize equipment, be able to connect your various systems, bring data together so organizations could finally see what was happening across their operations in real time or close to real time. And to be fair, actually, a lot of that promise has been delivered. Many organizations now have unprecedented visibility into their manufacturing value chain, from the shop floor all the way up to their enterprise systems, right? They can see the data flowing from suppliers, from audits, from their QMS in ways that they simply weren't able to do before. Now, with that said, I don't think organizations have been able to fully realize the return on all of the investment they've made in that digital transformation. And over the last, I would say, about almost a decade, I would say 10 years, right? Organizations have spent invested a lot on things like, hey, implementing sensors, on automation, again, connecting systems, data infrastructure. And what has that given us? Well, it's mostly given us better monitoring and reporting capabilities. Things like dashboards that tell us what happened and maybe where something went out of tolerance. But what it hasn't been able to consistently give us is foresight, right? It has not fundamentally changed the fact that many quality teams are still reacting to issues and things like that after they occur. And to me, that is the real inflection point between quality 3.0 and 4.0, right? The way I look at it is quality 3.0 largely retrospective. The focus is on documenting what happened, investigating things like deviations, nonconformances, working through CAPAs, and proving compliance, right, after the fact. And even when the systems are digital or digitized, the workflows and processes themselves are still very manual and reactive. So with quality 4.0 in contrast, the way I look at it is it's really about moving from hindsight to foresight. It's the shift from reacting to issues after they occur to being able to predict them earlier, take action earlier, and again, guide teams in real time. And AI is the key catalyst that will make that shift possible. So again, instead of just tracking what happened, what if it would be great if we could ask AI deeper questions? Why did it happen? What patterns are emerging across complaints, my audits and suppliers, and linking all that information together? What is likely to happen next if nothing changes? What action should we take now to reduce risk before it becomes a bigger issue? Right? These are all, I mean, it would be great if we could get immediate answers to those types of questions. And I'm not saying, hey, AI is going to be able to do that day one, but there is a journey and a path where that's going to become reality, and quickly so. And we'll get into more of that shortly. But I do also want to touch on another important shift, which is how we think about data. So for a long time, the dominant mindset has been consolidation. Organizations have spent years, often millions of dollars, building centralized data warehouses, data lakes, then layering BI tools on top to generate various types of reports and dashboards. Well, it generated some value, but it also created a lot of friction, right? It's expensive, slow, and really it's disconnected from where decisions actually need to happen. And so what AI enables today is a very different approach. We really no longer need to move all of our data into a single repository just to be able to extract insights. Data can live where it naturally resides, whether that's in your QMS records, documents, your supplier systems, other systems, or other places where you put unstructured text. AI can reach into those sources, be able to understand context, and generate insights in place. You'll hear terms like AI knowledge bases or knowledge graphs, actually, used to describe this. Terms aside, the important aspect here is that they act less like warehouses, because they're not, and more like a connective tissue, right? They link meaning and context across what is fragmented data, instead of duplicating it yet into another system and then trying to link it all. So as I like to say, this is really going from data collection to data activation, right? Data stops being something we store and report on and starts being something that actively informs decisions as work is happening. And the final piece of this shift is, well, the changing role of quality and compliance professionals. Look, quality 4.0 isn't about taking people out of the process. It's actually quite the opposite. It's about putting them in a better position to succeed, right? And AI is going to help with that as well, right? AI can help surface context, point out what matters, guide users in the flow of work. But the judgment, accountability, and the ultimate decision making will remain firmly with the people doing the job. It has to. And so in practice, I would say the move from quality 3.0 to 4.0, aided by AI, means less time hunting for information and more time acting on insights. fewer surprises because risks are surfaced earlier, and quality systems that work with users in real time instead of asking them to piece everything together after the fact. And so again, this is why I think AI is such a defining catalyst for this next era of quality. It's what will allow organizations to finally turn all of that digital investment into intelligence, and then more importantly, that intelligence into better outcomes.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Thinking about that kind of fundamental shift in the infrastructure, and
Hmm.
kind of thinking beyond a dashboard and just putting those insights right into the flow of work, putting it in the hands of folks doing the daily work. Um, yeah, really interesting. Okay, everyone get their clickers ready because here comes our first poll question. And I think, Dirk, you'll be launching this in the interface. It should be popping up for you.
Yep.
So the first question tying into what we were just discussing, how are you all currently using AI in quality or manufacturing? And we've got four options there: not using AI yet, experimenting with pilot programs, are you dipping a toe in the water? Um, do any of you have fully integrated AI into your processes? Are you off and running? And then the last option is, maybe you're unsure, maybe you need some more information, maybe you're not clear on what might be happening in other areas of the company. We'll just give you guys a moment to plug in your
And
answers.
and while we're giving them a chance to answer that, just a kind of in general, I mean, kind of the buzz phrase everybody's using right now is human in the loop, right? That we still need human in the loop, so we're not completely turning everything over to AI. Do you think that will remain the case, that there will always be a human in the loop? Or, because AI is growing so quickly and is getting smarter and faster, do you think there will be a point where for a lot of processes there is no human in the loop? We'll just say, let it rip.
Yeah, I wouldn't say in the anytime in the near future, quite frankly. Look, AI, very powerful, very smart. Like I said, it's evolving at a incredible clip. At the same point, especially within quality management, right? Given how critical, how vital the processes that get executed properly, the judgment and the decisions that go into it. I do not see humans being taken out of the loop anytime soon, quite frankly. Okay. I still see AI as really being that guide, the assistant, something to, like I said, augment and elevate the expertise and quite frankly the productivity of quality practitioners, professionals at different roles and different responsibilities. But I do not see human in the loop any going away anytime soon.
Okay. There's your results. You guys should be seeing the results of your poll there.
Yeah, I am. Let's see, kind of evenly split here. 45% not using AI and 45% of you experimenting with pilot programs. So, yeah, interesting. That's about on par with, recently delivering this poll question to other audiences. So, not a lot of change there. But yeah, I think people are. Um, Obviously, there's a lot of interest. I think people are starting to, embrace some ideas of, how are we going to go about this?
Yeah. And yeah, I'd be very curious as to when we say fully integrated. I'd love to understand there. I know this isn't the right forum, but that always piques my interest. Is how
If
you're going
that,
to
yeah,
turn the
if that
list
was
around.
you,
That's awesome. That's
if that
really cool.
was
No,
you, reach out.
yeah, please do.
Yeah.
Always looking to learn and see how folks are leveraging again what is a great, powerful capability, but in a nice, responsible, governed way. So, all righty.
Yeah. Okay, let's move along here. All right, Diptesh. So, like we were just mentioning, I think you'll agree there's a lot of hype, lot of interest, and not all of it, you know, all that's being talked about out there may translate into meaningful value for quality teams. So, again, from your perspective, what is going to distinguish AI that actually improves quality versus kind of this, maybe more of an empty hype. And then kind of related to that, how does understanding, quality stakeholder needs and even maybe beyond quality, those needs, how does that play into that distinction of what's going to bring value?
Well, yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head, which where I'd start here. But yeah, so from my perspective, like, the difference between AI that actually improves quality and improves outcomes, and AI that is, again, mostly hype, comes down to a few fundamental principles. But starting with, does it solve real problems for real users? And is it designed around how they actually work? And does it show up in the moments where decisions are made, right? And in the natural flow. I'll elaborate, right? So AI that actually works in the real world doesn't start with the technology, right? It starts with understanding the people doing the work, what they're responsible for, the decisions they have to make, and where friction currently exists, right? And of course, we all know, look, quality teams are not monolithic. They're made up of people playing very different roles across the organization, from those closest to the day-to-day execution, like your, or I say quality practitioners, pretty big folks on the shop floor running production lines, your quality engineers, to those responsible for operational decisions, such as managers running teams or responsible for lines. And you've got senior leaders focused on broader, more strategic outcomes. You also have roles like in the audit and compliance area who engage with quality systems in very different ways altogether, right? And so, again, these are just examples, but it covers a good range of it. But the point is that people in different roles have very different responsibilities, face different risks, face different challenges, or experience different forms of friction in their day-to-day work. And they also have different definitions of what success looks like, right, for them. And so if you don't deeply understand those roles, how they work, where things are breaking down, AI will certainly miss the mark, right? It might look impressive in a demo, it might look really flashy, but it's not going to get adopted and it's not really going to deliver any value, or at least not any lasting value, right? And so that is a design first mindset, right? So that design first mindset means mapping real workflows where decisions are made, where errors happen, where information gets missed, and then designing AI to support those moments in a way that feels natural and intuitive, not disruptive. So um, that is foundational, right? But then a second critical element for AI to deliver real value is, especially in quality, is domain and industry awareness. Again, as I'm sure folks that are attending here can attest to, quality as well as safety processes and compliance processes or regulatory requirements vary significantly across industries, even within manufacturing, right? What matters in life sciences looks different from discrete manufacturing, looks different versus automotive, versus aerospace, versus food and beverage, so on. And those differences directly affect how quality decisions are made. So take something as common as a nonconformance, right? So when a quality engineer talks to nonconformance, they're thinking about root cause, severity, disposition, corrective action. But how those concepts are defined and applied varies by industry, right? And AI that understands those distinctions and responds appropriately in the right operational context is actually what makes it usable as well as trustworthy, right? For quality teams. Which brings me to another key aspect, which is explainability and traceability. For AI to be effective, right, in quality flows and processes, teams need to understand why the output was generated, right? Why a recommendation was made, why the summary included a particular piece of information, what data it was based on, and quite frankly, how to go validate, right? That it's pulling information or it's referencing things that are legit. If users can't explain or stand behind an AI assisted decision, they're not going to rely on it, especially in high stakes scenarios. Um, Another critical consideration is where AI is applied, right? Real value comes when intelligence is embedded directly into the way work gets done inside core processes rather than as something separate, right? A disjointed or a add-on tool. So when AI is built into everyday processes, the guidance shows up in context at the moment it's actually needed. And so that's going to reduce friction That's going to increase adoption, build trust, because people aren't forced to step outside of their normal way of working or interpret generic outputs into actual actions. And finally, AI that delivers value has to produce measurable outcomes. Okay. I mean, that could be things like, hey, time saved, whether that's on investigation, whether that's on intake, the reduction in errors or rework, shorter overall cycle times. But just as importantly as all those kind of productivity or efficiency gain, prevention, right? Being able to identify issues earlier, reducing the likelihood of quality escapes, helping organizations avoid costly disruptions or unplanned outages before they happen. These are things you can measure, by the way. And so outcomes are key, right? And so when AI is applied well, success shows up not only in what teams can do faster, more efficiently, but in what never happens at all, right? Fewer surprises, fewer fire drills, fewer audit findings, because again, risks were surfaced and addressed earlier. So to end, when you strip away the hype, I think the pattern is pretty clear. AI that delivers value in quality is designed around real user needs, grounded in domain and industry expertise, has to be explainable and traceable, and embedded directly into how people work and where decisions are made. That's
Yeah.
yeah, that makes sense. There was a lot. There's a lot there, right?
There's a lot of layers. There's a lot of layers, and they all, kind of fit together to complete the puzzle. And so you started to touch, on outcomes. So maybe let's dig into that a little bit.
Mm,
And take a look at where the rubber can meet the road when it comes to outcomes. So, a lot of organizations, want to I think we're getting some questions in the chat here. What's actually working today, not necessarily, a theoretical use case. So, kind of based on what you're seeing and what you're working on, what AI capabilities are delivering those real measurable impacts right now.
yeah, and that's, I mean, exactly, right? This is where the conversation becomes actually practical, right? And goes from theory to actually applied. And look, folks, I mean, I've talked with, I can't even count, I've lost track globally, right? But
You've
that
been
is a
busy.
very, very common question. It's like, come on, all right, cut through all of that hype. Where can we really leverage AI today? Where have we seen it, or where have you seen it actually produce outcomes or generate value? And quite frankly, look, there are very specific capabilities that remove friction from daily work, or improve the quality of signals that teams are getting, or shorten the time it takes to detect and respond to risk. They're not really future looking use cases. These are things that organizations are deploying right now, and are able to actually measure and produce results from. So let me start with the first area, right? So the first place that we're seeing clear measurable impact is in streamlining things like routine tasks, such as manual data entry, right? Um, a lot of quality teams still spend an enormous amount of time on what I would consider to be low value tasks. Things like transcribing information, summarizing records, whether they're issues or other hand, filling out forms, or right in pages within their QMS, or copying data between systems. Right, that work, most of it is necessary because we need it, but it's not where really teams should be spending the majority of their time, or being wasting all the expertise that they built in, right, or over the years. And AI is already changing that, right? Capabilities like guided form completion, or data entry, field level recommendations, are helping quality practitioners capture the right information the first go around, and do so in a much faster, quicker way, right? So instead of guessing what belongs in a particular field, or missing key details, users are able to get context or guidance as they're doing the work, right? Again, an important part. And the results are very tangible, right? Faster intake, fewer errors, more consistent records and data, significantly less downstream rework. And of course, that's going to translate directly into productivity gains, but it also improves the quality of data that every other quality process depends on downstream, right? So that's the benefits will compound. And on that note, the second area, right, where we're seeing AI delivering real impact today is around decision intelligence, right? Helping teams make better, faster decisions by by surfacing insights and suggesting things like next best actions, again, within their normal flow of work. An area that, again, I've heard over and over, and it's one of the reasons why focusing on it over at ETQ as well, is around complaint or customer feedback analysis, right? So we're talking our customers, our users, having to field complaints or issues or other forms of feedback coming from their end customers. It's a great example of decision intelligence being able to deliver value today. And so what do I mean by that? So, for example, if a complaint comes in, there's going to be a lot of supporting, or can be a lot of supporting material attached or provided. Things like emails, right? The email correspondence that goes back and forth. Could be images that visually depict what the issue is. Other forms of documents, whether it's a PDF, Word doc. I know many organizations have their own portal, right, where there's a form that their end customers or users fill in with details that gets translated into a PDF that gets attached to a case, so on and so forth. There's a lot of different, ways of information coming in, and it all doesn't come in at once, right? It comes in over time too. And so traditionally, someone obviously has to manually go through and process all of that just to really understand what the issue actually is, before they can even begin to start capturing those details and then moving to the investigation and subsequently resolution. Well, AI can change that, right? It can summarize very easily all of those provided artifacts up front so that the folks that are handling complaints or are responsible for the intake can get a clear, concise understanding of the issue immediately. That's going to accelerate intake, but just as importantly, it will reduce the chance that key details or signals get missed. From there, AI being able to add context, such as surfacing related complaints or issues that have occurred in the past or have already been filed that are still in progress. Wouldn't that be great to understand, as well as what actions have been already taken or are in progress to avoid duplicate efforts, as well as potentially to identify something that's indicative of more of a systemic problem, right? Again, AI can also help here with being able to help you prioritize, especially if you're dealing with a lot of complaints or feedback items, right? By being able to assess the information coming in to detect what kind of urgency level does this have for that given customer or user, as well as what kind of risk level does this present to the business or a particular product line. And that gives the team a much clearer picture of what they're dealing with. And again, like I said before, whether it's an isolated issue or part of a more broader, more systemic issue. And that's where decision support really shows up. The AI highlights what matters, helps guide prioritization, surfaces suggested next steps. But again, the judgment and the decisions remain with the user. Back to your question, Dirk. Still, human in the loop. At the end of the day, look, AI can make mistakes. We do our best to make sure that it doesn't, but the end judgment and decision shall remain with the user, especially for, again, regulated environments where you can AI produced or automated decisions are unacceptable, quite frankly. And while complaints is a great example, by the way, the same decision intelligence applies across other quality processes as well. Non-conformances, deviations, corrective actions, the same type of ability to summarize, to be able to link or surface patterns, connect related records, helps not just the individuals working those items on a day-to-day basis, but also your frontline leaders and managers responsible for oversight, right? Instead of relying on static reports or lagging indicators, they're going to be able to get earlier visibility into what's happening, what's changing, what's trending in the wrong direction, and where attention may be needed in the moment, right now. And the third area where I've seen in actual use, right, where AI is delivering measurable impact, is again getting to that proactive risk management, particularly when your quality data is combined with other data sources from your operational systems, including your shop floor systems. So for example, by bringing data from quality processes along with signals coming from, say, your manufacturing operations or your production systems on the shop floor, AI can detect patterns that indicate rising risk before a failure or disruption occurs, right? And this is like the foundation of predictive quality analytics. And so instead of reacting to defects or escapes or downtime after the fact, teams can identify early warning signals, process drift, abnormal behavior, or a combination of events that historically led to quality issues. And so again, this will allow organizations to intervene earlier, reduce disruption, avoid delays, and prevent costly downstream impact. And so again, this is where I talk about risk intelligence becoming real. It's not about reporting what happened. It's about reducing the likelihood that the same issue happens again. And lastly, I would say, but definitely not least, the fourth area is around audit and compliance readiness, particularly through continuous assessment, right? So regulatory requirements, they change. They don't change necessarily every day, but definitely don't wait till your audit cycle, right? There are changes happening, especially if you're a global operation. You've got regulations in different parts of the world that would change. You might have changes coming in on a weekly basis. And I know organizations have teams dedicated to monitoring that and assessing what's changed and how that impacts. Well, what if AI can help them with that as well, right? What if they can monitor, and which they can, regulatory updates as they happen, interpret what they mean, and within the context of your organization, and be able to map them against your policies, your existing policies, procedures, and controls, right? Which will then make it possible to identify gaps early, surface areas of non-alignment, and enable them to address issues before an audit occurs or before they're exposed to, God forbid, potential fines or other types of enforcement actions, right? So compliance becomes something that is assessed and strengthened continuously rather than managed in periodic bursts. So to end here, well, if you take a step back, what ties all of these examples together is alignment to responsibility, right? Helping your quality practitioners execute more efficiently, your managers to be able to see things sooner, your compliance teams to stay continuously ready, and your leaders to stay ahead of critical risk, right? So that's where AI is delivering real impact today. These are real things that are already actually in play, again, through concrete capabilities that will improve execution, enable better decisions, and quite well reduce disruption, right? Unplanned outages and other forms of disruption.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I love that. Audit readiness as a state of being. It's
Right,
very
living a
zen.
dream. But it's there. I think we're close to making that a reality.
Yeah, yeah, and I think those examples that you just went through, a lot of great examples of kind of shifting that when we think of 3.0 to 4.0, less like swiveling to a dashboard and
Yes,
trying to do that manual interpretation and really driving it into those daily workflows, removing the friction. A lot of great stuff happening, embedded within QMS systems today.
indeed, indeed.
Okay. All right. Clicker's ready. We've got our second poll question. There's one more after this. The second poll question, we'd like to ask you all, what outcome from adopting AI is going to matter most to you or matters most to you? Is it faster decision making? Is it improved product quality? Is it those cost reductions through prevention? Is it regulatory compliance, like we were just discussing, that always audit ready? So I'll give you guys a few seconds to pop in
Yeah.
your answers.
And while we're doing that, just a quick question, Diptish. We're getting several questions related to the data itself. So let me kind of consolidate all these. The data that's going into the AI, is that being pulled or can it be pulled from legacy databases? People have all sorts of software they're running. Can that be pulled in? What about shop floor data from machines, like real-time data? Um, so is the data coming from all of those sources or can it? And then also, the interrogation of the data, is that like free form, like I can just chat GPT it kind of thing and say, I'm looking for this trend? And just kind of briefly, how does that work?
Yeah, no. So the answer to your original question is yes and yes, right? Whether it's legacy, it's like your standard old relational database, or it could just be data or content that's sitting in your file system, right? It could just be files. Um, Absolutely can reach out and pull that in, right? And without pulling it, I mean pulling it in is not copying it over, but have access to it and refer to it in real time. Things that we call retrieval augmented generation, which is the technical term there, the RAG model. And the key part there is, can it understand the context, right? Be able to link a data point in one system to a data point in another. There's nothing like a common ID, right? Like a typical database query, for those that don't know, right? You're going to have a common ID where you do a join, and that brings those two data elements together. Then, if you have two completely disparate systems, you're not going to have that. So this is where understanding what that data is and what it intent or what its meaning is, right? So being able to link based off of meaning. So simple as something like, hey, having a particular product name or a lot name in there, right? Or can basically be able to link together things by location, right? So it's not going to necessarily just automatically work, right? The whole idea of the knowledge graph is that it, as long as you have a layer of semantic meaning or definition applied to the data, it says, hey, this is the type of information that resides here, then the AI can actually do a really great job of assessing what's in there and then trying to tie it to the data points or related data points in other systems. Again, I could go into this a lot more detail. Happy to provide more of a descriptive or more detailed answer. I know timing here offline as we go forward, or actually rather after the webinar is over. But it's definitely a topic that I love talking about. So,
Okay. You should see your results there.
Great. Yes. So let's see. We're tied for number one here. So both 33% faster decision making and improved product quality. So I think this all kind of goes hand in hand,
yep.
And certainly would tie into cost reduction. And then let's see, 26% regulatory compliance. So okay, like we'll get them there. We'll get them there with the always audit ready. Um, all right. Thank you, Dirk. All right. So moving along. All right. We've heard a lot of kind of great, foundational information here. We've heard about some of the use cases that are delivering value. So, kind of the next question, where do we start? Like we said at the top, every company's going to be kind of at a different level of AI maturity. And as we've seen from our polling, folks are certainly beginning to explore and maybe not quite sure where to focus first. So for teams kind of just beginning their journey, what are some practical starting points, or how should they look at a crawl, walk, run approach to help build that confidence and momentum that you were referring to a bit ago, Ditesh?
Absolutely. So as you mentioned, I mean, every organization going to be at a different point in their AI journey. They also have, again, different priorities. They're going to be under potentially different constraints, as well as different levels of comfort, right? When it comes to adopting new technology. So there isn't, quite frankly, a single starting point per se that fits everyone. But with that said, there is a practical pattern that I believe works consistently, or at least seen, right? And it might seem like common sense, but it's really start small. Start where pain or friction and payoff intersect, and I'll go into that in a second. And start in areas that people touch every single day, right? High volume. So in practice, again, what that means is identifying a high volume quality process where there's a lot of friction or pain point, right? Where there's a wastage of time, wastage of time, or resulting in poor outcomes. So like, for example, manual data entry that we were talking about, right? Or the downstream rework, or stitching together that information across systems. Even small improvements in those areas tend to deliver immediate and visible impact. And that's why I think entry points like guided data entry or form completion, or data intake, like, for example, we were talking about complaints, are so often effective as the starting point. They're embedded directly into existing processes and workflows. They help users do their jobs faster, more accurately, and they're actually a lot easier to validate and audit and measure what the outcomes that it's delivering, right? Or the value is delivering, which will help build confidence early on. And so those early wins matter, right? Because when teams as well as other stakeholders and leaders see that AI can help them do something more consistently, do it in a better way, things like avoiding missing key details, right? Trust starts to build, and it will start almost like a snowball effect. And that value here is going to be tangible, right? Time saved, fewer errors, faster cycle times. And so that's why I would look at it as like the crawl phase, right? We identify lower risk, high visibility areas where you can have the clear outcomes, right? Measurable outcomes. Once you put in that place, as organizations mature, if we kind of use that same analogy here or metaphor, they move into the walk phase. This is where AI can start to now support more complex decision making and not just help with the execution, right? Again, complaint capabilities like doing that complaint analysis around urgency, risk level, being able to do pattern detection to help teams make sense of like the growing volumes of information they have, right? Instead of reviewing records one by one, AI being able to surface key themes, highlight those urgency signals, connect related issues across processes. That obviously benefits the practitioners day to day, but like I said before, it extends to the frontline leaders and managers as well. Um, and as organizations mature further, say talk about entering the run phase, now we're talking about we can apply AI more broadly, right, across their quality as well as other systems and data stores, right, to do things like proactive risk management and predictive analytics, right. So at this stage, we're talking about AI being able to correlate those signals across your quality processes and other enterprise or operational systems, including again production systems on the shop floor, which we've got a I mean. Um, we have the solution already in place around that, which is incredibly powerful, right? Being able to detect things like, hey, calibration drift before the piece of equipment actually starts producing non-conform or out of spec parts, and then actually having the preventive action automatically triggered, and then somebody going in there taking care of it. Look, you saved yourself so much scrap and potential waste there. So incredibly powerful. But again, we it's a journey, right? And another important part of making this journey work is flexibility. I do want to call this out because, as we said, organizations that are early in their AI journey or just starting out, they're going to benefit most from what I would say are native embedded capabilities in their QMS, right? Things that work out of the box, able to deliver immediate value. Again, things like field recommendation, summarization capabilities, intake help. But other organizations that are further along in their AI journey, those that are already building their own potential models or AI powered tools, or leveraging specialized solutions across their manufacturing operations and quality ecosystems, in those cases, the value comes from a QMS that can both share the quality data with those capabilities in a secure, governed way, as well as bring AI-driven insights back into the quality workflows and processes where decisions are made. And so that full spectrum really does need to be supported over time. Again, native capabilities, fast start, immediate value, ability to integrate specialized solutions where deep, focused expertise matters, and the ability to bring your own AI as organizations mature and want to extend or innovate ways that better align with their internal strategies. So, to wrap here, look, if you are just getting started, which I'm sure a lot of you are, right, on your AI journey, don't overthink or overcomplicate it by trying to boil the ocean. All right. I would recommend start with one high volume, high friction, right, where there's well understood and some amount of pain process. Attack that with AI, be able to deliver one auditable, measurable win, learn from that experience, and then build from there, right? I think it's a proven model for how organizations can turn AI from really a concept into a capability, and from experimentation to actually sustained impact.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. And tying it to any existing, existing quality objectives or your quality goals. Um,
Yes, good
yeah.
point. Good point. Yes.
Awesome. Right. So we've got one more, our third and final poll question. I want to make sure we have, I know we've got quite a few questions coming in, so I want to make sure we have a
Yeah.
few minutes for that. All right, so the last poll question, where are you in your day? We've been talking a lot about journey and crawl, walk, run. Where are you guys in your data journey? Are you collecting data digitally? Are you just starting to do that? Or are you already a pro at dashboards and reports? Are you using predictive analytics already? Diptesh was talking a bit about that.
Mm.
Are you actively implementing artificial intelligence or machine learning towards your data analysis? So I'll give you guys a few seconds to put your responses in.
And meanwhile, let's see. Okay, so I think at least our audience, very often we talk about AI being used in manufacturing or production, that kind of thing. Are you seeing it be used in EPC? What is that? Engineering, procurement. What does EPC mean? Hold on one second. I gotta Google that really quick. Engineering, procurement, and construction. So kind of these. Aside from manufacturing, is AI being used in kind of these other industries?
Oh yeah, I mean, look, I mean, it goes all the way from design to build to being able to actually manage the manufacturing and what we call like the operate kind of cycle. So I mean, yes, AI has is definitely usage, and there's actually a number of case studies out there that would speak to EPC use cases as well. Um, I mean, I've studied some of those, but even from again from a design aspect, if AI can actually help you design components, design um, uh, products in a much more efficient, quicker manner, it, it's going to help you with time to market, right? Again, giving you a more of that strategic edge. Time to market means we all know what that means, right? It's going to help the bottom line. It's going to help you gain market share there as well. But yeah, no, there's a number of studies, even outside of just core manufacturing, but even the surrounding aspects, as well as, of course, other verticals out there.
Should
All
have your
right, we got
results
our
there.
results here. So let's see, we've got 60% of you already using dashboards and reports. That's amazing. And then about 27% of you just starting to digitally collect data. Good on you. Good on you. That's you gotta start at the beginning. And then we've got 5% and 8% respectively, folks using predictive analytics and actively implementing AI ML. So again, to Diptesh's point earlier, we'd love to talk to you. Well, we'd love to talk to all of you and see how we could support you, but certainly understanding those predictive analytics use cases and the AI ML use cases, what's working for you guys. Love to learn more about that. So reach out.
100%.
All righty. Nearing the end here, everyone. So the last topic. So obviously, we mentioned this earlier, trust and compliance in quality is it's not an option. It's foundational, especially in those highly regulated industries. So, as folks, as quality leaders, start evaluating these AI solutions, what should they be looking for to ensure that technology is transparent, auditable, aligned with those regulatory expectations?
Sure. But like you said, it's foundational, right? So if an AI-enabled capability can't be explained, audited, governed, it won't be adopted, and quite frankly, shouldn't be. So again, when leaders or otherwise are evaluating AI or solutions that have AI or AI capabilities within quality, think about it in the same way that you would any system that could influence critical quality processes, decisions, or outcomes, right? Is it explainable? Is it auditable? Is it controllable? And is it aligned to your regulatory expectations? So let me just break that down into a few practical things to look for, right? So first, transparency, auditability, human oversight. Those are the three kind of related areas, right? You got to look for AI that is explicitly designed to, I would say again, augment human expertise, not replace it. People must remain as the final decision makers. AI can surface insights, recommend next steps, highlight risks, but there's always got to be clear points where there's a human or actual person that reviews, confirms, and takes accountability for the action, because that's the key part. AI can't take accountability if something does go wrong, right? Even humans, we make a wrong decision, but at the end of the day, we've got to step up and be accountable for it. AI will just hopefully help you make less wrong decisions. But just as important, the system needs to make it easier to understand what happened and why, right? So, for example, if a recommendation is made, users should be able to see what it was based on, right? What information was considered, what context influenced that output. And the system should be able to point back to supporting evidence. And that's what makes AI usable in real quality scenarios. The second thing that you need to evaluate is control. AI capabilities should not simply just be turned on by default, right? You should be able to have full control over whether it's enabled, where it's enabled, how it's used within your processes, your workflows. And in practice, that really means an opt-in model, not opt-out. Okay, I know a lot of, and I'm not even just talking within the quality landscape, but even outside. Hey, we've introduced this cool new capability. Go try it. It's already enabled. You have to go explicitly turn it off. You should be able to decide when it's activated, which capabilities are activated, who can access them, and what contexts those AI capabilities are allowed to influence decisions, right? Third, alignment with regulatory and validation expectations, of course, essential. Leaders should be evaluating AI based on how well its use is defined, okay, constrained and governed, not on the assumption that AI is going to behave the exact same way or produce the exact same output on every time, because AI systems aren't deterministic. They're inherently probabilistic, meaning there can be variance in the output. But the focus should be on, again, the clarity of the intended use and the boundaries of use, as well as what it can actually return back, right? So while there may be a little slight change in phrasing, the intent or the meaning of what it produces should be similar, right? So that's things that you should be able to test and ask for validation around. And then finally, leaders need to have clear visibility into data usage and protection, right? They need to be able to understand what data informs AI outputs, how access is controlled, how sensitive information is safeguarded, right? These are all core governance considerations that directly affect trust, compliance, and ultimately risk management. And last but not least, got to look for solutions, right, that are grounded in domain-aware intelligence. Again, whatever domain you're within, industry, regulations, or regulatory commitments you have, make sure that those solutions are aware, right, and have that built into them. And then those things are embedded into your day-to-day or regular quality processes and workflows. Because as I mentioned before, generic AI rarely sufficient on its own, if ever. And so AI that understands the context and operates within it is going to be far more trustworthy than that generic black box. So I would leave it there. Again, there are probably a few other things that I can add, but I think those are the key pieces to make sure that you're looking at whenever evaluating either an AI powered solution or capability within a solution you already have.
Great. Thank you so much, Divtesh.
Yeah.
Thank you for bringing your expertise to the audience today. It's been very informative. Um, Dirk, I know we've got a few questions in the queue here, and we're running
We
low
got a
on
few.
time. So, how we
Um,
do we keep going, or can we follow
um,
after?
yeah, no, let's go ahead. Let me just ask one question. We can end on this because there's been quite a few, and I guess to summarize, if you feel comfortable talking about this, they want to know kind of specifically. So could you give an example, even using ETQ's product, right, of how data is being looked at for one specific thing, whether it's coming up with, training questions or whether it's analyzing. Can you give kind of a specific example
Yeah,
of
sure.
what's happening?
Yeah, I'll give you again, a very simple but yet powerful example. Field recommendations, right? So data entry. So if you're entering in a non-conformance or you're entering in a new complaint, right? Our forms typically, even standard forms, will have anywhere between 40 some odd different fields. And a lot of our customers, again, tailoring those intake forms to their particular organization, we'll have upwards of 60 to 80 to 100 different fields, right? In different phases of the workflow. And so where AI has really already been shown to really help is you provide the context, right? So, hey, what type of nonconformance am I filling in? You give it that context. The AI takes that information, identifies again using historical nonconformances in this case, and says, okay, I understand what this nonconformance is. I understand, hey, these historical ones, there are these 10 similar guys here. And by the way, 90% of those had the value of manufacturing for the department it should be assigned to, had a priority of high or higher, right? Had this particular pieces of information in their description that are required, and so on and so forth. So, and then taking that and then presenting it to you, Dirk, as you're filling it in, right? So what would normally have taken you perhaps upwards of 20 minutes to fill in may take you now a couple of minutes, right? Just you have the data, you still want to review what it recommended and why, because we also, obviously, like I said, everything has to be transparent and explainable. So why each recommendation was made, and the rationale behind it, and then you make that ultimate decision. But again, it still cuts that down from potentially 20 minutes to 2 to 3 minutes, right? Incredible saving on each instance. So that's just one concrete example right there and there.
Okay. All right. Yeah, thanks. So there were a lot of questions. Don't worry if we didn't get to your question. This is all being forwarded. All your questions will be forwarded on to the folks at ETQ, and they can get to you offline. But we are out of time today, so that wraps things up. Angela, Diptesh, great presentation. Thanks for all the super information from you guys.
Oh, our
For having
pleasure.
us. It's great to
And
be
thank
here.
you for having us. And again, thank you
Hey,
for
no
joining.
No problem. And you'll all be getting an email in about 24 hours that'll have a link to a recording of the webinar. Keep your eyes open for that, and feel free to share this information with your colleagues, or go back and review it again. That'd be great. And that's it. So from all of us here at Quality Digest and ETQ, thanks for joining us, and we will see you at the next webinar. So long.
So.